Today, I want to share a concept with you that I believe will genuinely change the way you work, learn, and lead with an ADHD brain wiring. When I learned this concept, it was actually pivotal to the way I showed up when it came to performance, when it came to doing tasks, when it came to holding conversations. So I'd like to introduce you to the processing modalities. A processing modality is simply a way that you naturally take information, make sense of that information, and act on the information. Here are three ways that understanding your processing modalities can help you. It helps you to design your work in a way that aligns with the way your brain engages. It also helps you to communicate your needs to others. And finally, it reduces that friction and this overwhelm that comes in where you're like, why am I not getting this? One of the things that I cannot emphasize enough about, and you hear me talk about this often, is permission to self. And I think for us is giving ourselves the permission that this is the way I process information can be quite liberating in also implementing tools that make sense for you. And here's the thing, I want to be super clear. There's no universal agreed upon set of processing modalities. These are the ones that I learned through my coach training at ADD Coach Academy. And I'm sharing it with you because I think it personally made such a huge impact on the way I show up for work and also the way my clients are using the tool. So there are 8 processing modalities that we're going to go through. And as we go through them, I'll kind of give you an example of how each of them show up. So let's talk about the first one, auditory. This is where you process information by hearing it out loud. How many of us do that? How many of us need to listen to something in order to make it make sense before we do anything on it? Another one to think about is conceptual. A conceptual processors are those that want to know the big picture. They want to know the why, the how. So they will ask a lot of questions. They want to really drill into the depth of what this is about. And I think sometimes with conceptual processors, they may come across as defiant in the workplace because they're asking too many questions. And those too many questions may look like and sound like they're questioning what is being shared. And actually for them, they're not questioning it. They're just asking questions in order to make it make sense for them. So if you're a conceptual processor, which I know some of you are, I see you, I work with you, consider this. At some point, you want to tame the number of questions you have because sometimes this can become your kryptonite, where you're asking way too many questions just because you're getting stimulated by the answers. So you want to tame the number of questions and the analysis paralysis that we could get caught into when it comes to conceptual processing and know where to draw the line of, I have enough information, I'm ready to go. The next one is the kinesthetic processor. This one, you need movement to think clearly. And on the kinesthetic processors, what I love is movement really activates them, really engages them. So think of that fidgety child in school where they need to move in order to pay attention. That's one example. Another could be in the workplace. If you are presenting, you're standing up, you're walking around the room, you're working the room, and you're presenting. You're really engaged and tapped in. So that is a way you process. Another way could be walking meetings that you could have. Consider that the next time you're sitting in a sitting meeting and you're not really engaged and it's not clicking in, and you're highly kinesthetic and you need to move, think about that. If that meeting became a walking meeting, how different would you be? How much more tuned into the conversation will you be if there was that accommodation available to you? Next one is the visuals. I am highly visual. I need to see it in order to understand it. So if you gave me directions to somewhere, first of all, you can't just ramble on all the directions. I need a map in front of me. I need to circle it. I need to see it. I need to know where exactly I'm going. Once it's in my head, I'm good. I'm locked in. I understand it. So sometimes concepts for me that are being told, I need to either draw it out myself or get somebody else to show it to me visually in order for it to make sense. Verbal processors, this is, I think, the most common processing modality out there within the ADHD and the neurodivergent community. I see this as the magic bullet, get to where we want to get to. So let's stay with me on this one. So when we verbal process, we're actually thinking out loud. And if we don't get the opportunity to talk it out loud, it stays in our head. It turns into rumination. It turns into catastrophization because now we're just spinning in it. And so when we have the opportunity to talk it out loud, we're able to course correct. We're able to hear ourselves. The words are coming out. I'm like, oh, wait, did I just say that? I meant something else, or this equals this. So that divergent mind that we have becomes convergent with verbal processing. Now imagine in meetings, if you don't have the opportunity, so let's say you're in a meeting, 5 people are talking, you've consumed information, they gave you the visual, you asked some questions, but there was no space for you to then talk it out loud. What do you think will happen next? You go into your desk and you're like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. And you're sitting in your rumination and you're stewing over the thing over and over and over. That verbal processing for you, even if you had 5 minutes to talk it out with somebody, to debrief on the meeting you just had with somebody else, it can change so much for the way you show up to that task. So do not underestimate the power of talking it out loud. And actually, in fact, that's what we do in coaching. In coaching, we're talking it out loud. We're looking at it from all sides. We're looking at it from all angles to see where the clues are. Another one that I get passionate about is also tactile. Tactile processing is when you learn information by handling it, by touching it. So for me, when it comes to tactile, if you saw my desk, I have sticky notes. I have colorful pens that I use when I'm marking things down on my list of activities that I got to get done. So the digital format for me doesn't work as well because I need to circle, I need to tear the paper, I need to fold the paper, I need to add sticky notes and so forth. So tactile processing is super important in my way of the way I manage my day in and day out. There's 2 more processing left, and I hope you're still with me. Emotional processing. This is where we really need to be emotionally connected to something. So if we're not connected to a task that aligns with our values, aligns with who we are, or can really bring us joy, processing that information can become a little bit challenging. So we really need to connect emotionally to be able to get engaged. And so the whole idea of fake it to make it or pretend you know what you're talking about in a meeting in order to pay attention, that doesn't work for us. For those of us that are emotional, we need to be in tune with the content, with what's going on in order for us to show up and be present. And finally, the intuitive processing. This one is a little bit on the woo side, but it's not. Those of us with ADHD, I think we're highly intuitive. There's just this thing, that knowing that we have. And so when we shush our intuition, this is where we're doing ourselves a disservice. And this is how I think it shows up for us with intuition when we're not aligned to it. I like to think that for those of us that were the risk takers, the impulsive, I'll go get it done because I've got this intuitive hunch. If over time there's been evidence that you intuitively did something and it didn't work out, I want you to start paying attention to when was it intuition that actually your gut said, don't do this, don't submit that proposal, versus it was hyperactivity and impulsivity that made you do that, to jump in both feet and send the proposal without reviewing it. So there's a difference that I want you to consider as those with ADHD, that yes, there's intuition and then there's hyperactivity and impulsivity. Usually with intuition, it comes back with, I told you so, dang it, I should have paid attention to that. So I want you to start paying attention to intuition because there's a bit of a more work that needs to be done to decipher between impulsivity versus intuition. So there you have it. Where do you see yourself in the list? Were you verbal processing more? Were you auditory more? Were you a conceptual? Now, here's the thing. You don't pick one and become like, this is the thing. You have access to all 8 in this case, and even more. But what I want you to become is more self-aware of at what point, which one can I activate or amplify in order to get my brain engaged? I think that's the key part here that we want to hone in on with processing modalities, is when all of them are shushed and they're not being addressed or engaged, then you sit in this funk of, I'm not able to get things done, or I'm not engaged in the task because one of them or a few of them are missing. All of that to say that when it comes to your role, your professional role, and you are eyeing that next promotion or you're in a leadership role, I want you to consider that it's not about task management, productivity. When we understand how we process information, we're a little bit more clear. And understanding processing information gives you the clarity as a leader to know when you should be delegating something out that doesn't align to the way you process information. It reduces friction between team members. And actually, the more you know about this, and also I would encourage you to do this exercise with your team so that you all understand how everybody processes information as a team or as individuals. So maybe next time Sally wants to verbally process out loud, she's given the space. Or if Johnny is asking a lot of questions, it's not that he's questioning the project, but he needs it to make it make sense. He wants to see big picture and how he fits into that. So I think from that place of awareness, you truly become an inspiring leader versus one that like hammers performance, performance, performance. So essentially, you're creating a system that works for you and not one where you have to fit into the model, if you will. I remember one time I was coaching a leader who was ashamed to have a whiteboard in his office. What was that about? The whiteboard actually for him was a way of being tactile, writing things down, visual, graphs, all of that good stuff. But he was the only leader that wanted the whiteboard in his office. And for him, once he understood that actually this whiteboard is going to take his leadership and strategic thinking to next level, that aha moment was everything for him. That he had a tool that he was actually poo-pooing and being embarrassed about that actually could elevate his leadership and the way he showed up. Now imagine sitting in that discomfort all day, every day when you do actually have a need to, I need a whiteboard in order to get my job, and that's not given to you. What does that do for us, right? Dysregulation, defiance, why the hell can't I do this? All of that stuff can easily be mitigated once we understand how we process information. How do you bring this into the team? So here's one thing I would suggest. And actually, I kid you not, one day I walked into Staples and I overheard the colleague training a new employee, and she said, how do you best learn information? And I just wanted to go up and give her a hug. I'm like, oh my God, what a brilliant question to ask someone who's new. How do they best learn information? Because what if he needed to touch the things? What if he needed to write things out? So here are some questions that you can consider for yourself and for everybody else in your team so that you all can pull out this processing modalities. Here's one question. How do you focus best? Do you need a quiet space or do you need a space with a little bit of ambient? What does that look like? What helps you make sense of things? Do you need to ask questions? Do you need to see it? Do you need to write it out? When did learning feel easy and natural to you? What kind of an environment were you in that you could learn at your best? I know for me, I need to be in an environment where I ask a lot of questions, actually. I am that conceptual person. These type of questions not only set you apart as an inspiring leader, but also create a different team dynamic where everybody is kind of in tuned to the way how everybody processes and not have to wonder what's going on. And as always, it's not about fixing the problem. It's about creating systems and processes that make sense for your brain, that activate your brain in a way that aligns to who you are at your best. I hope this was helpful. Let me know in the comments which processing modality is yours and what are you doing about it. And if you want more conversations about ADHD, leadership, designing work that aligns with your best brain wiring, don't forget to subscribe. And I thank you for spending the time with me and see you at the next conversation.